Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lighthouse Wealth Group podcast. We appreciate this time. Sam Rice and Tommy Derfler here with Lighthouse Wealth Group. And if you like our podcast, please like and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you as well. And so we just hope this is helpful for everyone. But one of the things that Sam and I talked about that we're going to discuss today is the whole idea of having enough. So,
Yep.
Sam, I think this is one that is a constant point of conversation. I mean,
Yep. What's your number? Is that number
yeah,
enough?
yeah.
Yeah. What is the purpose behind that number?
hmm And it's been so funny because I think for us when we're sitting in meetings and talking to folks, this inevitably comes up at some point or another. Do I have enough? Is everything okay? And
Hmm.
I've listened to a lot of clients, and no matter what their financial situation is, either it's really, really, really good or not as good. And,
Yep.
you see and you sit there and you listen to folks, and their fears are the exact same, no matter what the dollar
Yep.
amount is. The emotion, the fear is in both of those cases on both sides of the extreme.
Do I have enough to survive without
Yeah.
an incoming paycheck? Do I have enough to supplement my life and produce my own paycheck?
Yeah. So, for everybody out there listening, the quick question is: have you ever hit a financial goal and still felt anxious, insecure, or like it wasn't enough? So, if the answer to that is yeah, well, great. Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
So, today we're digging into the brutal truth. You can't really earn peace of mind, and no amount of money will do it for you. So, what's interesting is that there's stats out there and that show that people with $1 million net worth often report the same financial stress levels as people with $100,000. Why do
Yep.
you think that is?
I think initially we all start off somewhere and you get to a point where you think that point is going to be enough. That point's going to make you comfortable, but you probably still haven't grasped the reality of just living comfortable with that number and feeling secure with what you have and realizing that, hey, at a certain point, I should feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, there's no magic light switch that turns on and off once you hit a certain number. Oh, anxiety's just gone.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the ways in which we really help is that we give people that reassurance that, okay, we've taken accounting of everything that we're trying to accomplish here, and you know, these concerns are still concerns. Like these priorities are still priorities to you. The goals are still goals, but now we can account for these and know that we've got a mental accounting of we're here.
Yeah.
We can we can take a bit off the table. We
Yeah.
can feel less anxious and be that sounding board.
Yeah. And I don't think there's a number out there that's going to satisfy that anxiety. I think that anxiety is something
Yeah.
that's kind of an internal thing that people really struggle with. And let me say this too, advisors are not immune to this. You know,
Yep.
I felt that way,
Yeah.
and it's a human nature thing. And
Hmm.
so to your point, Sam, I know that we've dealt with a lot of people, and we're trying to take the financial insecurity off the table as much as we can so you can focus on what's really important. And
Yeah.
sometimes, um, I always tell people we can't take everything away, but we can take the financial aspect away if we do some good planning and really help
Yeah.
people. And if they do the right things, they really should be able to enjoy it. Because as they say, if you do all the right things and there's still a scarcity mindset, you can't take it with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think we find this with a lot of retirees that have had that scarcity mindset that's helped them and benefited them throughout their life. Once they get to a certain point in retirement, we kind of actually need to give them a couple nudges here and there to actually, hey, you've done really well. You're gonna be fine. You don't need to pinch as many pennies. Go enjoy this, this amount of wealth that you've amassed, and it's there for a reason. It's not
Yeah.
just to it's not just for a rainy day fund. We've got that too, but this is for living life.
Living out your values, what you believe
Hmm.
in. And I think a big part of that is basically the older generation, right? So the baby boomer generation grew up during the time of the Depression. And
Yep.
so they saw their parents and how they reacted to those times. And that was kind of ingrained in them, right? So a lot of our older
Yep.
clients, they still have that ingrained no matter what the amount is, and I never thought
Hmm.
as an advisor when I got into this business, it was really helping people save and know what to do with their money. But now with the older generation, I'm finding out it's more of how to get them to spend,
Yeah.
and not frivolously. Of course, I'm not. When I talk about spending money, it's not in a frivolous situation, but it's more of,
No.
hey, you have financial security. Let's use this to our advantage. And what are your values? Is it your
Let go a little.
family? Yeah. Is it a matter, is your relationship with your family important? Your kids,
Yep.
grandkids, are they spread out? Let's put a travel budget in there so you can spend more time, because a lot of people
Hmm.
won't spend money on themselves, or at least that generation won't. They will not spend
Yeah.
money on themselves.
I
Um,
find it hard myself. Yeah.
yeah. But if it comes to their family, or if they have a
Hmm.
giving heart, um, or anything else that really represents their value, that's what we try to help them with, of understanding and learning what is your value system, you know
Hmm.
and this doesn't have to be spending money on themselves, but if we can understand that and know that, I think that's where, for the older generation, it really helps them say, oh wow, I am going to be okay, but I don't need to buy, the most expensive car. I don't need to buy anything for me. But hey, listen, I've got three kids. They're in New York, Florida, and California. And, you may be somewhere in the Midwest. And so it's like, hey, let's develop a travel budget for this. Let's have you
Yeah.
go and spend time with your kids, spend time with your grandkids. And yeah, I mean, I think that certainly helps a lot of folks with that, having enough uh, mindset.
Yes. And I think that it's also a pretty pivotal mindset shift where you can start to feel empowered as opposed to the scarcity mindset of, do I have enough? Over anxious. If you've got that person stepping along with you through this process, giving you that reassurance that we're going to be okay, you're doing all the right things, this is really enough. Hey, let's stress test your plan, your situation. It's really empowering, I think, for a lot of people to have that mindset shift from anxious, anxiety to, you know, there's not a certain thing that I need to get to make me feel less anxious. It's more having control over, every aspect of my financial life.
Yeah. And I think we see this probably the most often when, one spouse passes away, and maybe that one spouse did take care of all the financial needs of the household, maybe paid the
Hmm.
bills, or, knew where to put money to invest it for later on down the road. And then that spouse who has that responsibility passes away, and all of a sudden the other spouse really doesn't know anything. And so that's where a
Hmm.
lot of insecurity, rightfully so, comes into
Yeah.
play, because they just don't know. And so I remember talking, this is years ago, to a lady, and her husband passed away. They're a little bit older, and they had quite a bit of money. They had done a great job in saving, and she was a little out of the loop regarding their financial situation. And we
Yeah.
looked and we're like, well, this is great. You have a wonderful situation. And I remember her asking, is it okay if I go to the store and buy an outfit? Am I going to? And it was like, oh, wow. Okay. She really doesn't know her financial situation. And so
Yeah.
for us, it was very psychological. It wasn't numerical, it was very psychological.
Hmm.
And just giving, you know that's what I enjoy about this, is being able to give that peace of mind of, okay, we're going to work together on this. It's a learning curve. We're not, nothing
Yeah.
we're going to say today is going to make sure to take that anxiety away from you, right? But let's work together on this. And over time, we get to see a lot of that mindset shift into a lot of gratitude because of that.
Gratitude and confidence. Yeah.
And so it comes down to when we peel back the layers of the onion, you can see how money affects people, you know?
Yeah.
And just like I said, it's not numerical, it's psychological, because when you get down to the root of it, it was about fear or loss of
Hmm.
control or failure, and some people have this too, especially executives. Um, if their number goes down, now they kind of feel a loss of value,
Yeah.
personal value.
Yeah. Yep. Or just stepping away from their higher up position in general.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to being comfortable with your own financial situation, and everyone's different, and that, achieving more for yourself is not a bad thing, but what are you chasing? What are you achieving more for? Is
Hmm.
it for your family? Is it just for a number that you think, hey, once I get here, I'll feel better? I think that's really the wrong way to look at it, because once you hit that number, nothing's really going to change. I
Yeah.
mean, if you hit that number, it's most likely, given what the market has done over the last couple decades, probably going to go up. Are you going to feel more secure at that point? Maybe,
Hmm.
but what's the reasoning behind it?
Yeah, and I think what we've seen with the younger generation is that people who don't necessarily come from a lot of money, they start doing really well,
Mm,
and what happens is they start to make more money, and then all of a sudden they start increasing their lifestyle, having that lifestyle creep, as you had mentioned before.
yeah,
And then once you get to that point, when you don't come from money, you're fearful of losing it then.
yeah,
So even when you do have it, there's this fear of, I got here, I have this, this is awesome. Oh my gosh, I don't want to lose this. And that's
hmm,
really powerful, and it can really overtake somebody, in which
yeah.
now they're living in fear. And that's not right either.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can see people um, take too little risk in their portfolios if they still get a long runway ahead. And, that's where you see people hoarding cash. Not that having a nice nest egg is a bad thing, but really it's not doing anything for you unless it's working for you. Um, but again, it
Well,
goes back to having a partner to help be there and reassure you that, you know, there's proper ways to plan, and you don't need to be so or have such a scarcity mindset once you hit some of these thresholds.
and I like what you said, because a lot of people don't realize as well is, people that are very risk averse, they just say, hey, I'm just going to keep this in the bank. I'm not going to invest anything. And that's not the right answer either. You want to make sure you're
Hmm.
stewarding what you have, and having a hoarding mentality isn't the right answer either, where it makes people feel safe and good of like, okay, I can't lose this. But, if you go into retirement with that mindset, you are losing it, because you're paying taxes and you're up against inflation.
Yep.
So that's
Hmm.
not the right answer either. It's just a matter of, from our standpoint, knowing what's important to you, and then saying, okay, great. Now, how do we steward this money that represents your values and your hopes and dreams?
Yep. Once we define what enough is, how do we steward this money properly so that it's, you know, accounting for the growth in your life and not becoming a dead weight, um, and really being, yeah, a steward of what you built and giving it the proper respect it deserves.
Yeah. And it's just funny, because I was just thinking about this, and so many times, I've been in meetings, hundreds of meetings, and it's, people that have a very nice net worth, and they're saying, hey, is this okay? Is this enough?
Yeah.
And so the fun part for us and what we get to do is, okay, let's stop. Let's start defining enough. What do you mean by that?
Hmm.
Enough is different for everybody.
Yep.
And again, it usually comes down to either a scarcity issue, loss of
Hmm.
control, um, or identity tied to financial success. So,
Yeah.
in order for us to really help folks, we've got to understand those, excuse me, those underlying values.
Hmm.
Because once we know that, then it's like, okay, great. Now we know how to steward your money. Now we know what your fears are, you know? So if
Yeah.
it's a matter of scarcity, guess what? You don't need to be in high risk stuff. You don't need to be investing in Bitcoin for sure, you know? And
Yes.
we're gonna protect that.
Yeah. And I think if you define what enough is for you and your family, it allows you to open yourself up to have that gratitude towards what you've done for yourself already.
Hmm.
Nobody's perfect. Everyone, I think, as you said, in many meetings, what's the first thing people think about their financial situation? Oh, I wish I could have more. That is, I mean, probably 50% of the time somebody says that.
And no matter
But
what their
again,
financial situation
I
is.
know, yeah, they could be in the 99th percentile of uh, of people doing well in retirement, but they still feel like they're selling themselves short. And I think once you reassure people that, hey, this is definitely going to be enough to satisfy all the things you want to do, the causes that are important to you, um, allow yourself to take a breath and have some gratitude for what you've done already.
Hmm. Absolutely. So, so then knowing this, let's talk about some practical things that our listeners
Hmm.
can do to make sure they don't fall in that trap, right? And so I think the first thing is just reflecting on, okay, what is enough and why?
Hmm.
And so one of the
In every phase
questions,
of life. Yeah.
absolutely. And so one of my favorite questions to ask folks is, okay, if you had 10 times the amount of money that you have today, how would your life be different?
Mm.
And it's because what that does, it takes the whole money and numerical aspect of it out of the question. It gets to the root of, okay, if money wasn't an obstacle, you know, what would I be doing?
Yeah. What would you be doing? Hmm.
Exactly. And so I think a lot of people don't ask themselves that. And I think it's helpful that when you're working with Lighthouse Wealth Group, that you understand that. You got to know that first.
Well, I think that, I mean, that's one of the great reasons, people meet with planners in general is, people are so busy with their own lives. And in many cases, we come across people. I think it's an unfortunate thing that we don't, get together with them or they don't come across our paths sooner. But, you know, either right before retirement or 5 years to retirement, because there's a stigma just with the unknown. Am I doing stuff right? I don't want to feel ashamed if I've done something wrong and somebody's
Yeah.
going to call me out on it. But I think that's really the wrong mindset to go into it, because we are here to help our clients. We're not here to shame anyone for things they could have done, things they did do. Um, we're here to educate our clients, shepherd them down the right path, help them live out their goals and dreams. And that shouldn't have any stigma towards it. When we
Yeah.
ask these questions of what would you do with your life if you had 10 times more than what you have now, nobody's, as you said, nobody's asking themselves that question, when it's late at night and you're at the dinner table or something like that with your spouse. Very rarely do people plan like that, unfortunately. And that's
Yeah.
what we can help draw out of people in a stigma-free environment. Like, you know, you're doing this for yourself, for your family. What do you want to do with it? This is all for you. What do you want to do with
Hmm.
it?
And I
Let's,
think, yeah,
yeah.
writing down like a statement of that.
Yeah.
So, again,
Yep.
going back to the practical side of this, okay, how do you prevent yourself from getting in that trap? What you do is you create a personal statement. And
Hmm.
it could be something like this: I know I have enough when I can blank. You know what I mean?
Yes. Do this thing, not hit this number.
Yes. So if again, if your family is really important to you, I know I have enough when I can freely go visit my kids and grandkids, several times a year without thinking
Yeah.
about the financial aspects. Okay, great.
Hmm.
Now you know that. So if you can plan accordingly and we can show you, hey, you can do this financially, you're deciding that prior to you getting there. So you're not falling into that trap that once you get there, it's like, oh, I'm not really sure. Maybe just a little bit more, just a little bit more,
Yep.
that'll help. And
Hmm.
that never, rarely does it ever work on that. So I think creating your
You're
own
always
personal
chasing.
statement. Hmm. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. I think another thing that'll help too is just gratitude, writing down something financial that you're grateful for. It could be, hey, we were able to pay off our house. You know, that
Yeah.
could be something.
That's
It could,
huge.
yeah, absolutely. It could be something. The fact that, hey, I'm contributing 15% of my income towards my retirement. That's a
Hmm.
great benchmark. It could be,
Yep.
hey, I am consistently tithing 10% of my income to the church. And so
Yep.
that's something that's like, hey, if you're doing that, these are great things. And so I think it helps reduce the whole obsession of I need more.
Yeah. I mean, too many times people focus on what they could be doing better at or what they're not doing and not taking a good enough mental accounting of what they have done.
Hmm.
My family's healthy. My kids are wonderful. We've got a roof over our heads,
Hmm. Those are the
you know.
things that matter the most, not a number. And I
Yep.
remember hearing even a billionaire, he was asked questions, something to the fact that, hey, with all this money, does this bring happiness? And the way the billionaire responded was, happiness is a state of mind. It's not a number. Your problems follow you whether you
That's
have
so
money or
good.
not. And
Yeah.
so, and a lot of times it'll magnify, the more money you have, it'll magnify your problems and your issues.
Yeah. If you take on bigger things with more money, um, it makes it a more fragile house,
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
know. So
exactly.
if something were to change, it could all come falling down if you've got, this lifestyle creep or a big debt load or, you know, that's why people have to be really careful.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So another thing to help a lot of viewers and listeners would be also to reframe risk. People, when they hear the word risk, they're like, oh, I don't want to take any risk. And so risk is, in its simple terms, is uncertainty of the future. That's all it is.
Hmm.
It's uncertainty. So if you take a lot of risk, then there's probably a lot of uncertainty, right? Like starting a business, there's a lot of uncertainty when you start a business that, hey, is this going
Yeah.
to work or not? Or if you buy certain high risk investments, and these are very speculative investments, right? Like, hey, I'm not sure if this is going to work, that's high
Yeah.
risk. The more certainty you have, the less opportunity you have for growth. And so if you want something that's really, really certain, it's not going to get you anywhere, right? And
Yeah.
so I think
Measured
reframing,
risk.
yeah, exactly. So if you can understand that risk isn't necessarily the enemy, it's the ticket price for growth.
It's a good way to put it. The ticket price for growth.
Hmm.
Some level of risk.
Yes. So, reframing that and saying, hey, sometimes, this is all calculated risk. This is all relative. Everybody feels differently around, with risks. This is not a generalization, but this is, we want to talk about risk on an individual basis with folks on saying, hey, what's going to keep you up at night at the end of the day. And so if we're taking too much risk and you don't like that level of uncertainty, great. We don't need to be in these super high risk speculative investments.
Yeah.
Um, on the contrary, too, if you don't have any growth, a lot of retirees, their biggest enemies are going to be taxes and inflation, so
Yeah.
there's price for that as well.
We see that too. People close to retirement and they're afraid to lose their nest egg. So
Mm-hmm.
they've got it in a super conservative allocation. And, you know, that's only going to get you so far.
Yeah.
If you're having to continue to live off your investment income for the next 30, 40 years, depending on when you retire.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this episode of the podcast, I think what we want people to know, we want to share our wisdom and what we've learned throughout many years we've been doing this for. But, just don't get hung up on a number because you follow yourself wherever you are. And that's the key with all this is if you're insecure with a little bit or you're fearful with a little bit, you're going to be more fearful with a lot. You're going to be more insecure with a lot. So just like the example I used earlier about the billionaire said, hey, happiness is a peace of mind. It's not a number. I think the sooner we can get to that point in general, the more content we will be just as a community and society and not letting
Yep.
a dollar amount dictate your happiness or not.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's a state of mind. It's family. I heard a similar quote. I mean, it was another billionaire getting interviewed, and you know, his biggest accomplishment in life wasn't his company. It's, do my kids want to hang out with me when I'm old?
Yeah.
There's no number
Yeah.
to that.
Exactly. And everybody's looking at them from the wrong perspective. Oh, you have all this money, you can do whatever you want, you can, go on these
Yeah.
lavish vacations, and they're thinking, and that's why I love hearing these quotes from people because people that get there realize their wisdom that they're trying to pass down is, once you get to that major financial situation or level, it doesn't bring you what you're searching for.
Yep.
And I love hearing that from a lot of people that are at the pinnacle of things. Now, some others, there's some bad apples there too. So, but those are not the folks I'm referring to. Um,
Yeah. I mean, extra security is always nice in the form of a dollar amount, but you know, when you really ask what people's true highlights in life are, it's not their business, it's not their dollar, it's their family.
yeah. And just like they say, you can't take it with you. So
That's right.
you can't take it with you. But as we close here, just remember money will never love you back. It'll never sit you down and tell you that you're enough. It'll never give you um, that happiness you're looking for. That's an inside job. And I think the sooner we claim it, the sooner we start living like you already have it.
Yeah.
So,
Love that.
but all right. Hey, everyone. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it. Please make sure to like and subscribe to our podcast. We're on Apple Music, we're on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, of course, or X, I guess now. But we'd love to hear from you. So reach out if you have any questions, if any topics you think that would be worthwhile. We'd certainly like to hear about it. Other than that, Sam Rice, Tommy Derfler are signing off on the Lighthouse Wealth Group podcast. We'll see you.
See you on the next episode.